Reading through the Bible in 1 year, August 9th, Ruth chapter 2, Acts 27, Jeremiah 37, and Psalms chapter 10. I can't read. Let's go ahead and begin. Now Naomi had a kinsman of her husband, a man of great wealth, of the family of Elimelech, whose name was Boaz. He was a ruthless man. And Ruth, the Moabitess, said to Naomi, I kill me. I really do. It's like peak dad humor. Oh, so wonderful. So Ruth, the Moabitess, said to Naomi, please let me go into the field and glean among the ears of grain after one in whose sight I may find favor. Basically, she's saying, let me go and find a husband. And she said to her, go, my daughter. So she departed and went and gleaned in the field after the reapers. And she happened to come to the portion of the field belonging to Boaz, who was of the family of Elimelech. Okay, I said that she was out looking for a husband. That's part of what she was doing. She was also looking for food for them. Gleaning is a normal thing that you can do if you are a widow, or if you're an orphan, or if you're a sojourner in the land and you have no one to, or you have nowhere to work. You could go in after they'd already grabbed all the food that they want. Anything that hit the ground was left for you. And also the corners of the field, they would leave wide open so that whoever was living, or whoever was a widow or an orphan or, what have you, could go and just pull straight off the stalk of whatever happened to be there. So she departed and went and gleaned in the field after the reapers. And she happened to come to the portion of the field belonging to Boaz, who was of the family of Elimelech. Now, behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem and said to the reapers, may the Lord be with you. This standard greeting. And they said to him, may the Lord bless you. Then Boaz said to his servant who was in charge of the reapers, whose young woman is this? And the servant in charge of the reapers replied, she is the young Moabite woman who returned with Naomi from the land of Moab. And she said, please let me glean and gather after the reapers among the sheaves. Thus she came and has remained from morning until now, and she has been sitting in the house for a little while, just resting. It's a normal thing for you to rest. You're not out all day long. They weren't monsters. Then Boaz said to Ruth, listen carefully, my daughter. Do not go glean in another field. Furthermore, do not go on from this one, but stay here with my maids. Let your eyes be on the field which they reap, and go after them. Indeed, I have commanded the servants not to touch you. When you are thirsty, go to the water jars and drink from what the servants draw. He's basically giving her full rights to have everything that the servants have. That's a big deal. I'll pull from this one because there's a lot of really good notes in this. There we go. We're caught up. Then she fell on her face, bowing to the ground, and said to him, why have I found favor in your sight that you should take notice of me, since I am a foreigner? Basically, she's a sojourner in the land. And Boaz replied to her, all that you have done for your mother-in-law after the death of your husband has been fully reported to me. And how you left your father and your mother and the land of your birth and came to a people that you did not previously know. May the Lord reward your work, and your wages be full from the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to seek refuge. Then she said, I have found favor in your sight, my Lord, for you have comforted me, and indeed have spoken kindly to your maidservant, though I am not like one of your maidservants. At mealtime, Boaz said to her, come here, that you may eat of the bread, and dip your piece of bread in the vinegar. So she sat beside the reapers, and he served her roasted grain, and she ate and was satisfied and had some left. When she rose to glean, Boaz commanded his servant, saying, let her glean even among the sheaves, and do not insult her. Also, you shall purposely pull out some grain from the bundles and leave it for her that she may glean, and do not rebuke her. So she gleaned in the field until evening. Then she beat out what she had gleaned, and it was about an ephah of barley. That's a lot. And she took it up and went into the city, and her mother-in-law saw what she had gleaned. And she also took it out and gave Naomi what she had left after she was satisfied. So she took her food that she had for lunch and brought that back so that Naomi could have some as well. And her mother-in-law then said to her, "Where did you glean today, and where did you work? May he who took notice of you be blessed." So she told her mother-in-law with whom she had worked and said, "The man of the name with whom I work today is Boaz." Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, "May he be blessed of the Lord, who has not withdrawn his kindness to the living and the dead." Again, Naomi said to her, "This man is our relative. He is one of our closest relatives." Then Ruth, the Moabitess, said, "Furthermore, he said to me, 'You should stay close to my servants until they have finished all my harvest,'" which basically means she's allowed to come back out the next day and keep working until they finish the entire harvest. Naomi said to Ruth, her daughter-in-law, "It is good, my daughter, that you go out with his maids, so that others do not fall upon you in another field," basically saying that so she doesn't get raped. So she stayed close to the maids, or close by the maids of Boaz, in order to glean until the end of the barley harvest and the wheat harvest. And she lived with her mother-in-law. I'm going to bring up the rest of the notes here for you. There we go. Let's go on to Acts 27. We are now very close to the end of Acts. When it was decided that we would set sail for Italy, they proceeded to deliver Paul and some of the other prisoners to a centurion of the Augustan cohort named Julius. And embarking in an Adramyttium ship, which was about to set sail to the regions along the coast of Asia, we put out to sea, accompanied by Aristarchus, a Macedonian of Thessalonica. The next day we put in at Sidon, and Julius treated Paul with consideration and allowed him to go to his friends and receive care. From there we put out to sea and sailed under the shelter of Cyprus, because the winds were contrary. When we had sailed through the sea along the coast of Cilicia and Pamphylia, we landed at Myra in Lycia. There, the centurion found an Alexandrian ship sailing for Italy, and he put us aboard it. When we had sailed slowly for a good many days and had, with difficulty, arrived off of Cnidus, since the wind did not permit us to go farther, we sailed under the shelter, or lee, of Crete off Salmone. And with difficulty, sailing past it, we came to a place called Fair Havens, which was near the city of Lycia. When considerable time had passed, and the voyage was now dangerous, since even the fast was already over, Paul began to admonish them, and said to them, "Men, I perceive that the voyage will be certainly with damage and great loss, not only of the cargo and the ship, but also of our lives." Again, this isn't something God told him was going to happen. This is something that he noticed from living in that region for a long time and having been through that area quite a bit. So he's warning them, don't do it. But the centurion was more persuaded by the pilot and the captain of the ship than what was being said by Paul, because the harbor was not suitable for wintering, and the majority reached a decision to put out to sea from there, if somehow they could reach Phoenix, a harbor of Crete facing southwest and northwest, and spend the winter there. When a moderate south wind came up, supposing that they had attained their purpose, they weighed anchor and began sailing along Crete, close inshore. But before very long there rushed down from the land a violent wind, called Eurykilo, or a nor'easter. When the ship was caught in it, and could not face the wind, we gave way to it, and let ourselves be driven along. Running along the shelter of a small island called Clauda, we were scarcely able to get the ship's boat under control. After they had hoisted it up, they used supporting cables in undergirding the ship. Basically, it's these cables that they would put under the ship, and then they would cinch them up on top to hold the ship tight together. And fearing that they might run aground on the shallows of Syrtis, they let down the sea anchor, and in this way let themselves be driven along. The next day, as we were being violently storm-tossed, they began to jettison the cargo. And on the third day, they threw the ship's tackle overboard with their own hands, since neither the sun nor stars appeared for many days, and no small storm was assailing us. From then on, all hope of our being saved was gradually abandoned. When we had gone a long time without food, then Paul stood up in their midst and said, Men, you ought to have followed my advice, and not to have set sail from Crete and incurred this damage and loss. Yet now I urge you to keep courage, for there will be no loss of life among you, but only of the ship. For this very night an angel of the God to whom I belong and whom I serve stood before me, saying, Do not be afraid, Paul. You must stand before Caesar. And behold, God has granted you all those who are sailing with you. Therefore, keep your courage, men, for I believe that I believe God that it will turn out exactly as I have been told. But we must run aground on a certain island. But when the 14th night came, as we were being driven about in the Adriatic Sea, about midnight, the sailors began to surmise that they were approaching some land. They took soundings and found it to be 20 fathoms. A little farther on, they took another sounding and found it to be 15 fathoms. Fearing that we might run aground somewhere on the rocks, they cast 4 anchors from the stern and wished for daybreak. But as the sailors were trying to escape from the ship and had let down the ship's boat into the sea on pretense of intending to lay anchors out from the bow, Paul said to the centurion and to the soldiers, Unless these men remain in the ship, you yourselves cannot be saved. Then the soldiers cut away the ropes of the ship's boat and let it fall away. Until the day was about to dawn, Paul was encouraging them all to take some food, saying, Today is the 14th day that you've been constantly watching and going without eating, having taken nothing. Therefore I encourage you to take some food, for this is for your Look, man, words are just hard today. This is for your preservation, for not a hair from the head of any of you shall perish. Having said this, he took bread and gave thanks to God in the presence of all, and he broke it and began to eat. And all of them were encouraged, and they themselves also took food. All of us in the ship were 276 persons. Again, this is not a small boat at all. When they had eaten enough, they began to lighten the ship by throwing out the wheat into the sea. When day came, they could not recognize the land, but they did observe a bay with a beach, and they resolved to drive the ship onto it if they could. And casting off the anchors, they left them in the sea while, at the same time, they were loosening the ropes and the rudders. And hoisting the foresail to the wind, they were heading for the beach. But striking a reef where 2 seas meet, they ran the vessel aground, and the prow stuck fast and remained immovable. But the stern began to be broken up by the force of the waves. The soldiers' plan was to kill the prisoners so that none of them would escape and swim away. But the centurion, wanting to bring Paul safely through, kept them from their intention, and commanded that those who could swim should jump overboard first and get to land, and the rest should follow, some on planks and others on various things from the ship. And so it happened that they were all brought safely to land. And there is all the notes. Let's move on to Jeremiah 37. Now Zedekiah, the son of Josiah, whom Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had made king in the land of Judah, reigned as king in the place of Coniah, the son of Jehoiakim. But neither he nor his servants nor the people of the land listened to the words of the Lord, which he spoke through Jeremiah the prophet. Yet King Zedekiah sent Jehukal, the son of Shelemiah, and Zephaniah the son of Maaseiah, the priest, to Jeremiah the prophet, saying, Please pray to the Lord our God on our behalf. Now Jeremiah was still coming in and going out among the people, for they had not yet put him in the prison. Meanwhile, Pharaoh's army had set out from Egypt. When the Chaldeans, who had been besieging Jerusalem, heard the report about them, they lifted the siege from Jerusalem. Then the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah the prophet, saying, Thus says the Lord, God of Israel, thus you are to say to the king of Judah, who sent you to me, in order to inquire of me. Behold, Pharaoh's army, which has come out for your assistance, is going to return to its own land of Egypt. The Chaldeans will also return and fight against this city, and they will capture it, and they will burn it with fire. Thus says the Lord, do not deceive yourselves, saying, the Chaldeans will surely go away from us, for they will not go. For even if you had defeated the entire army of the Chaldeans who were fighting against you, and there were only wounded men left among them, each man in his tent, they would rise up and burn this city with fire. Now it happened, when the army of the Chaldeans had lifted the siege from Jerusalem because of Pharaoh's army, that Jeremiah went out from Jerusalem to go to the land of Benjamin in order to take possession of some property there among the people. This is the land that he had previously purchased, right? While he was at the gate of Benjamin, a captain of the guard, whose name was Irijah, son of Shelemiah, the son of Hananiah, was there. And he arrested Jeremiah the prophet, saying, you are going over to the Chaldeans. But Jeremiah said, that's a lie. I am not going over to the Chaldeans. Yet he would not listen to him. So Irijah arrested Jeremiah and brought him to the officials. Then the officials were angry at Jeremiah and beat him, which again they can't do. And they put him in jail in the house of Jonathan the scribe, which they had made into a prison. For Jeremiah had come into the dungeon, that is, the vaulted cell, and Jeremiah stayed there many days. Now King Zedekiah sent and took him out, and in his palace the king secretly asked him and said, is there a word from the Lord? And Jeremiah said, there is. Then he said, you will be given into the hand of the king of Babylon. It's like, I've been telling you this from the beginning. If you like, I could repeat it for you in case you didn't hear me. Right? Moreover, Jeremiah said to King Zedekiah, in what way have I sinned against you, or against your servants, or against this people, that you have put me in prison? Where then are your prophets who prophesied to you, saying, the king of Babylon will not come against you or against this land? But now, please listen, O my lord the king, please let my petition come before you, and do not make me return to the house of Jonathan the scribe, that I may not die there. Then King Zedekiah gave commandment, and they committed Jeremiah to the court of the guard house, and gave him a loaf of bread daily from the baker's street, until all the bread of the city was gone. So Jeremiah remained in the court of the guard house. And that is all of the notes. Let's move on to Psalm chapter 10. Why do you stand afar off, O Lord? Why do you hide yourself in times of trouble? In pride, the wicked hotly pursue the afflicted. Let them be caught in the plots which they have devised. For the wicked boasts of his heart's desire, and the greedy man curses and spurns the Lord. All the wicked, in the haughtiness of his countenance, does not seek him. All his thoughts are, there is no God. That was neat. As it just rolled past into the last chapter. Cool. We'll see if it does it again. His ways prosper at all times. Your judgments are on high, out of his sight. As for all his adversaries, he snorts at them. He says to himself, I will not be moved. Throughout all generations, I will not be in adversity. His mouth is full of curses and deceit and oppression. Under his tongue is mischief and wickedness. He sits in the lurking places of the villages. In the hiding places, he kills the innocent. His eyes stealthily watch for the unfortunate. He lurks in a hiding place as a lion in his lair. He lurks to to catch the afflicted. He catches the afflicted when he draws them into his net. He crouches, he bows down, and all the unfortunate fall by his mighty ones. He says to himself, God is forgotten. He has hidden his face, and he will never see it. Arise, O Lord. O God, lift up your hand. Do not forget the afflicted. Why has the wicked spurned God? He has said to himself, you will not require it. You have seen it, for you have beheld mischief and vexation to take it into your hand. The unfortunate commits himself to you. You have been the helper of the orphan. Not that people who commit themselves to God are unfortunate. It's the people who have had tough lives and struggles. Those are the ones who commit their entire lives to God and to his service. Break the arm of the wicked and the evildoer. Seek out his wickedness until you find none. The Lord is king forever and ever. Nations have perished from his land. O Lord, you have heard the desire of the humble. You will strengthen their heart. You will incline your ear to vindicate the orphan and the oppressed, so that man, who is of the earth, will no longer cause terror. And that is it for today. We'll be back tomorrow. Behold, the word of the Lord.